It's Fragrance Friday. Phoenix J back, and y'all, I'm really excited to finally be getting into part one of our Q&A. Y'all have been giving me some amazing questions, just throwing them down in the comments, some DMs, some ask in person, some on TikTok, some on YouTube, some on IG, and I really appreciate it. So I've got my iPad in front of me, and I have screenshotted a few of them. And for today, I'm just going to get into about 3 or 4 questions because I do want to allow the opportunity for more questions to go down in the comments below. I also want to make sure I'm giving each question its opportunity. I want it to be nice and full. And so, y'all sit back, get your beverages, get your snacks, and let's talk about me. Anybody who knows me in person knows that I can yap. So I'm going to do my best to keep this to a solid 20, 30 minutes, not go too crazy with it. But I'm really excited to just share more about me because y'all seem interested in me. You know, I love talking about fragrance, but y'all want to talk a little about me. So here we go. Let's get into it. And of course, a lot of these questions, there are a lot of questions about fragrance and some really fun ones about like fragrance situations. So the first one that I've got here I got a couple weeks ago, and this question was, what first got you into fragrances? And that is probably one of the longer answers I can give, because it's been an entire life's long journey. I've always liked things that smell good. Like I've always liked things that smell good, and I've always liked smelling good. And while my tastes in fragrance have changed a lot. The way that it really started for me, at least the journey in fragrance, was when I was like 15. I've been wearing like Axe body sprays, good Axe body wash. I convinced my mom to let me get them. And so here we are, finally starting to smell like a young man, and I had my deodorant to match. And I will never forget my favorite Axe was Excite. I don't even know if they still make Excite. It had the purple on it. It was one of my favorite smells. To this day, I would probably still wear Excite, but I have so many things in my fragrance collection. There's really no point in getting an Axe body spray if I don't have to. So I would wear Excite, and then my mom ended up going on this cruise. I can't remember if she went to Cozumel or I think she was in a certain part of Mexico. And you know, when you travel, many times you can get things on the cruise ships. You can go certain places, and you can shop for the low. For the low low. And my mom was able to come back with a Versace Man Eau Fraiche. And I've shown y'all this bottle before. It was the bottle that started it all. She did not get this for me. She got this for my stepdad. And she gave him the bottle. I think he smelled it at first. And he tends to go for those stronger, woody fragrances, things like Air Mist and Stetson and Burberry Hero. And he also likes like a lot more cool spices, things with a lot of like projection. And this is not a very powerful fragrance. It's a wonderful fragrance. It smells great. It still has some decent longevity, but it's an eau fraiche. It's going to give you 2, 3 hours without heavy spraying, and it's just going to smell nice and clean. And that's just going to kind of be it. But it has such a unique composition that when I went into the bedroom one day and I saw he'd barely been wearing it, I was like, "Hey, you wear this?" And he was like, not for real, go ahead and wear you some. So I wore some. Then I started wearing it, every day. And then suddenly, I was like, hey, you don't really wear this. Can I have it? And he's like, yeah, you can have it. And one day I walked past him with that fragrance on. And he's like, what's that? I said, oh, it's that Versace. He said, that was Versace? I said, did you read the bottle? Yeah, that's Versace Man. Oh, fresh, whatever that means. I like it. And he's like, he was thinking, I know he wanted it back. I know he wanted it back. But with me, once you give the gift, it's mine. That was mine. And I've had Versace Man Eau Fraiche, a bottle of that in my collection ever since. Like I keep a bottle of that. Um, so that was when I started wearing like fragrances with a little more body, a little more of class, if you will, to them. And they weren't just body sprays and they weren't just Axe. So I go to college, and in college, I got my first job and I started making my own money. And in making my own money, I really started playing more and more with fragrance. And it was a time for my millennials, especially my younger millennials. Y'all know Rue 21 had us in a chokehold at one point. You could not pass up a Rue 21 sale, those Rue Bucks. They had fragrances come out each season, and I became a huge fan of Rue 21. In fact, I still have one of my fragrances. I think I showed it in my color collection, but I still have a bottle of, I think it's 2013, 2014, one of those from Rue 21. And it was a spring, summer situation, very bright. Um, But I started shopping Rue 21 fragrances and I started wearing them every season. And I was at this point still sticking mostly to masculine fragrances, fragrances sold for men. I hadn't really branched out into any like genderless fragrances or typically feminine fragrances. So go through college, and that's what I was wearing. I was wearing Rue 21 fragrances. I had my first Versace Man that I would continue to buy bottles of. I remember actually buying my first bottle of Versace Man. I was either a freshman or sophomore in college, and I didn't realize how much it costed over here in the States. Like, I did not know what the cost was in the States. And so I was able to get, and I was heavy on eBay, y'all. I was on eBay, and I was able to get this Versace Man Eau Fraiche gift set. It had a bag, it had a full size spray, like about an ounce. It had a travel spray, like one of those little baby miniature coffrettes, and then it had like a body wash and a maybe aftershave or body lotion, something like that. Loved it. Loved it. You couldn't tell me anything. Anytime I had a trip with my frat or my friends, I was taking that Versace Man bag. I was loading it up with stuff. You couldn't tell me anything. Like not a thing. So as I start wearing other fragrances, I'm buying my own fragrance. I get out of college, and that was really when the shift began to happen because I also started getting into essential oils, which I love essential oils and using natural fragrance with diffusers and salt stones and lava rocks and wearing them in all different kinds of ways. So aromatherapy became something that was important to me because also in college I started suffering from migraines, and my mom was doing research and they put me on a prescription that just caused this horror, like it just was terrible side effects that made the migraines worse. They would go away, but I'd have to like wait a solid 20, 30 minutes of more intense pain, and consistent yawning. Like I was yawning so much and then it would give you drop it. Ridiculous. I hated it. But my mom got into essential oils and she started finding some for me to smell and try out. And I think peppermint was one of the first ones, then eucalyptus, and then rosemary, and then lavender followed. And then I got into tea tree, and so as I started getting into all these fragrances, I'm like, man, there's so many other smells out there. Like, so there's got to be more to this whole fragrance thing. And I really started playing with my own skincare, playing with my own cosmetics. And that ultimately led me into really getting into fragrance and the fragranced sensorial experience to a whole nother level. Now, the other layer of this is like, I wasn't just into smelling good with like sprays, it wasn't just perfumes and colognes. Have always loved a good body wash. And even as a kid, if I had a bottle of lotion running low and I already had a new one, I would mix them and be like, ooh, that smells different. And I wore a lot of cocoa butter, Jergens. They have like a cherry almond situation. I would wear that. Um, so I had all these different body lotions and oils I would mix up and make my own concoctions. And that's what I would wear because I liked it smelling different. So fragrance has really always been like a part of my own makeup, my own DNA. And what's even more peculiar about that is the person I'm probably closest with on this planet is my mom. The majority of my life, she's been more sensitive to fragrance. So I've never really been able to wear more intense fragrances around her. It was crazy because I couldn't wear a ton of fragrance around her, but I always found myself being able to wear some of my concoctions and my Versace Man around her. Like those, we never had issues with. Um, so I get out of college. I start living on my own. I'm living in Atlanta. And I would like to say that that's when it kind of took on a whole different like face. Like my love for fragrance became something different because I'm out here living on my own and I'm figuring it out for myself. And I was working at a server as one point, a bartender, and that becomes part of the experience. It's like your server walks past you, a bartender comes up, the smell, not just the smells of the kitchen, but like, do they smell good? Do they smell good? I've always liked smelling good. Like even when I get a little sweaty, get a little tired, you still want to smell good. It's not just for the people around me, it's for me. And after college, I really just started slowly but surely experimenting. Now, I want to add this next question in because I got this from one of our friends here, one of our Phoenix fam. We're gonna play with that, our Phoenix feathers. Y'all tell me what y'all think. One of our Phoenix fam, and they sent this message to me. Um, Nope, not that one. And if I can't find the exact, I know I have it screenshotted somewhere. Here we go. I was always a bit self conscious about wearing certain fragrances, always worried someone would say something like, can you smell something? Or what is that smell when they smelled me? Any good confidence tips for wearing stronger scents, especially those that lean feminine? So after college, I ended up coming back home after a couple years in Atlanta. Came back home, moved back in with my family, which I live with my family now, moved back in with my family, and As I'm, increasing my own discretionary income, started to find myself, the taste is elevating a little bit. This was the first bottle of women's perfume I bought myself. And while I don't wear this one heavily now, it was a moment of like transformation for me because this is Versace Dylan. This is Versace Dylan turquoise. And I mean, it's got a saponic quality, but it's floral. It's got jasmine in there. It's bright and it just smells good on me. It would just smell good on me. And I'm like, I like it. I was working for the Buckle at the time and they sold it. So I was wearing it at work. And eventually I just decided to go ahead and buy my own bottle. And I had that discount and I went ahead and got them points and I was really happy and I started wearing it. And that was when I began to really lean into if it smells good on me, if I like the way that it smells, who cares what anybody else says? Who cares what anybody else thinks? And yes, I've had moments where people looked a little weird because I walk by and I smell like a bouquet of roses, or because I smell like iris, or because it's clearly a jasmine perfume he's got on. But it got to a point where I liked how it made me feel. I didn't really care how it made others feel. I wouldn't wear anything necessarily offensive or too strong, but I started really getting into wearing fragrances that just embodied my mood. And that's honestly how we got to a collection that looks like that, is because I have different moods, different vibes. I wake up feeling different. So I want that vibe and the fragrance to match. The style has to match. Today it was giving sleek, but it was giving a little spicy meets a little sweet. So today's combo I had on the drunk maple I told y'all about with Sugar Addict and with 2% from Sniff. Don't worry, we're about to get there soon. It just dropped. I promise you, a review is coming. Y'all know I'm a Sniff ambassador. We're going to get to it. But today it gave sweet, it gave spice. It was that nice balance and it matched the sleek vibe I was giving. And that's what fragrance became. It became an extension of expression. It became another accessory. It's like the jewelry I wear. It's like the rings. It's like the denim I put on. It's like the boots. It is another part of the outfit, and it ties it all together. And I've always been a person who's more experiential. Like I want to provide an experience, not just for others, but for myself. Like it makes me feel good to know that the experience of pulling it all together makes me feel classy, makes me feel luxury, makes me feel sophisticated, or whatever the descriptor is for the day. So, for my friend who wants to get into more of those gender bending fragrance moments, friends, start wearing things that make you feel good. And if it smells good on you, who cares what anybody else thinks about it? I want people to walk by and be like, what is that? Do you smell that? What is that smell? Because to me, that means I did my job. Clock that. Clock that. That means I did my job if I walk past someone and they're like, ooh, that smelled good. Or, ooh, what is that? Like, it's different. Like, I've had fragrance combinations that I put on that are really just me. Like, they're so different that other people might not wear it. Like, I couldn't. And I've had people say, I couldn't pull that off or I wouldn't wear that. But the way it smells on you is great, good, delicious, etc. So, again, to me, fragrance is an extension of ourself. You want to build that confidence. Find those notes that make you feel confident. Find those bottles that exude confidence for you because that's a part of the journey too. The bottles aren't just there to be pretty. Like I think some bottles embody the juice. So get into it and experiment and explore. Go into, different Sephora, Ulta, Saks, Nordstrom, Macy's, Belk. Go these places where they sell fragrance. Beauty supply store. Sometimes the gas station. Now I've seen some of my gas station pools. Like you will be surprised where you can find fragrance experiences that just take you to the next level. Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret. There's so many places to go and experience fragrance differently without judgment. So I'd encourage you one to start places where you feel the most safe and then begin branching out. And sometimes I take a partner with me. Sometimes I'm going shopping and I'm like, hey, bestie, come with me. Let's go here. Let's go smell this together. Or I'm visiting and I'm like, let's stop in here. Because I'm big on spiritual fragrances too. I think that's kind of where I've gotten now is as I began adding luxury fragrances and I went on that crazy buying spree where I was just buying so many fragrances. Like I know one year I spent a couple $1,000s in fragrance alone and I had to look at myself and be like, all right now, you have a problem. Let's take a step back. Let's take a deep breath. Let's calm down. You're trying to build a legacy. There's other things like your business you're trying to fund. There's other places you're trying to go. There's debts you're trying to pay off. We cannot be spending thousands in fragrance each year. Like, come on now. Let's even though you can afford it, doesn't mean you need to do it. Okay. So hopefully that answers our question about really tips on how you can be more confident in wearing your fragrance. Also, like fragrance to me is like a good outfit. And I can't say that enough. When you put it on, you put it on. Clothes and fragrance aren't wearing you, you're wearing them. It's all about reminding yourself. And sometimes it starts small and but you have to be very intentional. Because to me, fragrance is spiritual. It is intentional. That dry down on that is really nice. This is really good spring summer. Like so every time I say spring summer, I think about Real Housewives of joggers. Spring summer, spring summer. Thank you, Sheree Whitfield, for that because you get to live rent free in mine and my bestie's head. Um, but back to spiritual fragrances, as my love for fragrance continued to grow and continued to like kind of metamorphosize, I found myself really wanting to get more into the formulation side of things. And that's where I am now. I've started actually making my own spiritual fragrances. So, like Florida water, Kananga water, fragrances used for meditation and prayer and cleansing of altars and the cleansing of crystals. I've been making my own for a couple years now, and I really enjoy that and I've been able to gift them to people and use them to clean spaces. And one person was like, I think there's something in our new house. We need something to clear up the energy. And they've had no issues with that. But I've also used it to anoint and dress spaces and things and gifts for people. So when I started getting into spiritual fragrances, it just took a whole nother level. And that was even prior to me creating this social media space for me to talk about fragrance. So fragrance literally has been a part of my journey since I've been able to control what I put on my body. Literally, as long as I've been able to put on my own lotion and put on my own body wash and get my own soap, I literally have had a love for things smelling good. Like I've had a love for smelling good. Um, Next question. Let's see what we got here. I'm gonna save that one. What are amongst your least favorite fragrances? This is from at What's That Smell? Homie has been with me since the beginning. So I when they suggested I should do a Q&A, it was without a shadow of a doubt. Like I've gotten some of my best tips from my YouTube community, and I just really I'm so thankful for y'all because I know that we're on the growing pattern. We're growing every week. There's more subscribers joining this community, and we'll start celebrating that. And I actually did get a question before I get into this one. I actually did get a question about challenges. Y'all have to give me challenges. Let me tell y'all. Outside of work, okay, so at work in my career in my job, I have to be creative. It's a huge part of what I do. Oh, it's a huge part of what I do. So, being that my job requires me to be creative, and then I get out and I make fragrance videos, I have to be creative. And then outside of that, the business that I'm building requires me to be creative. I don't have a lot of extra bandwidth to be thinking about challenges. So, if y'all want me to do challenges, get down in the comments. Let me know what kind of challenges. Send me some links. I can do challenges. I have no issue with that. Someone asked me, and I've been asked about challenges before. I have no problem doing a challenge, but I can't think up any other challenges besides the Random Wear Wednesday I'm already doing. So y'all let me know what y'all want to see and I got you. Okay, so what's that smell? Homie's been here since the beginning. And when they suggested I do a Q&A, I was like, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm definitely going to do it. Like, you've been here since the beginning. If that's what y'all want, I got you. And this was the question that was asked. So what are amongst your least favorite fragrances? Has your nose improved since you first got into fragrances? And are there any fragrances that you tend to smell everywhere? So, amongst my least favorite fragrances, I've said this in review videos before. I don't like things with a powdery finish. It's got to be a really good composition. I've got to like the rest of the notes put together because if there's any of that powdery dry down, it always has smelled like White Diamonds, Chanel number 5, older, like Stetson even has that kind of powdery draw down. I don't like those compositions. They just to me they are a little dated. Now, if you love that, that's your business. I love that for you. But to me that I don't really like a powdery dry down. What other fragrances do I just not like? I mean, there have been some bad spiced amber fragrances that I just really didn't dig because it was just too much spice and you didn't get the amber. And amber should like dry down on the skin, really close to the skin, and really give a lot of warmth. And when they get too spicy, it to me it's not enjoyable. Now this is one fragrance I don't dislike it, but the composition I gave myself a sinus infection. Let me grab it so I can tell you about this one. I'm recording. So this one. Dua brand. I've talked about this one before, and I know I still need to go through the collection of Dua fragrances that I have, but this is honey cognac, and I do like this fragrance because I wanted that honey meets booze situation. But y'all, the first time I sprayed this fragrance, I sprayed it before bed, and I might have sprayed it 2 or 3 times on my arm. And I'm smelling, I'm like, that's pretty strong. Like, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to sweeten this up. I'm gonna have to soften this a little bit because that's kind of intense. I don't know if I really like that. And I didn't think about the fact that I sleep on my arm. Like, and so I was breathing this in all night. And I woke up and I could not breathe through my nose. This was too strong. So fragrances like this, when they're just way too strong and too powerful, they have to be cut. Even if the notes are good, I just because of the way my genetics are set up. I can't do too intense, too long. When the Born in Roma from Valentino Extra Dose, when it first came out, I was helping sell that fragrance. I was, supporting that brand a ton. And at the time, like I sprayed it like 5 or 6 times in a row within an hour for different clients I was assisting. And by the end of that day, I had a sinus infection. So when fragrances are too strong, I find that I can. That's probably why I like more skin scents than anything because they can last all day. You can layer them up. You can really kind of play with the profile. But when they're too strong, like this, like that, I can't really enjoy it. I have to wear it lower. I usually have to wear it on clothing and not on my skin because I do tend to have a little bit of a sensitivity to some alcohols and fragrance. So, yeah, I can't do too strong of a fragrance. What was the other part you said? Has my nose improved since I first got into fragrances? Absolutely. I can. I don't have any forms of anosmia that I can tell, so I can smell most musks. I can smell most notes in a fragrance, and if I get enough time to really like let them dry down and I spray them a couple different ways on a strip, in the air, on my skin. I can pick up the different notes and the different kind of intricacies of how the fragrance has been formulated. So that has been good. And the more that I've gotten into fragrance, the more I'm finding myself even picking up on the really subtle things. Uh, Perfect example, Dead Cool's Extra Milk. I hated it. It's still not amongst my favorite fragrances. Like, it's not something that I'm gonna just pick all the time to wear. But it took me 2 years just about to be able to smell that fragrance. Because the first time I smelled it, all I smelled was alcohol. And I let it dry down and it smelled like paper and I just really didn't get with it. But it's so popular. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it another chance. Gave it another chance a couple months later, still couldn't smell it. It's been about a year or year, yeah, almost 2 years since the first time I smelled it. And I can actually smell the fragrance and appreciate it now. Again, not one I'm gonna go and just pull and wear extra milk like crazy. I do prefer a little bit more projection for my fragrances than that. But that was a good one I can tell my sense of smell has really gotten attuned to it. Are there any fragrances that you tend to smell everywhere? Yes and no. I tend to smell certain notes everywhere. Um, like if it's even sprayed anywhere in the air, I'm gonna pick up Baccarat Rouge 540. Anything like it, I'm gonna pick it up. So that's jasmine, saffron, cedar. I'm gonna pick that combination up no matter where I am. I can be in the grocery store. I can be walking past someone down like in a mall, outdoor mall, and I'm gonna pick that one up because to me it's one of those that's very recognizable, especially if you've had that one. Very recognizable. Some of those classic fougères like Bleu de Chanel, Sauvage by Dior. Those are just they tend to bleed together for me. Um, which is why I tend to get more niche fragrances anyway. They just have that the composition is so similar I can smell them anywhere. But when it comes to actual things that I smell everywhere, there's not any particular note or fragrance that stays stuck in my nose. Now that honey cognac was one that I smelled that for days after I got that sinus infection. Like that's all I could smell. And I haven't. I've only worn it once since then because I'm like I'm not gonna screw myself up like that again. But those are really good questions there. I appreciate those. Okay, we'll do one more for this video. Um, ah, Another OG. Outside of fragrances, what's the worst smell you've experienced? Are there any weird smells you like? And if you launched your own fragrance line, what would it be called? And what kind of fragrances would you design? That last question I've thought a lot about, and I actually have some prototypes I've been working on. So we're going to see how safely I can answer that one. Worst smell I've experienced. So it was summer. Picture it. Sicily, 1926. No, I'm kidding. But it was summer 2012. Me and a few frat brothers were staying in this apartment. And one of my frat brothers had already, this was his apartment during the year, but for the summer, two of us were going to move in with him. And there was a day where everybody was at work but me. I had a day off and I decided I was going to clean up the kitchen because the kitchen was a hot mess. And he lived in this apartment with one of our classmates who was going home for the summer. So I decided to clean up the apartment. And the most part, cleaning the apartment was not an issue. But I get to the kitchen, and this is where it needed the most love and attention. And y'all, the first cabinet I opened had rotten potatoes in it. That is one of the worst smells outside of dead animal that I've ever smelled in my life. Rotten potatoes are that's a tough one because there's really nothing quite like the smell of rot, but a rotten potato has its own thing. Now I've also smelled a rotten egg. Those that's up there with it. Like those are probably the worst smells outside of fragrances, like perfumes that I've smelled. And I know people say like, "Oh, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy." That I would wish that on my worst enemy that they woke up and that's all they smelled. I think that that's fair. I think that that's not too bad. That's not. I mean, there's worse things you can wish on people. I don't wish them pain, but inconvenience and a bad smell, yeah, I would wish that on the worst enemy. Are there any weird smells you really like? Growing up, I always liked the smell of gasoline. It was just like the windows cracked, mom's getting gas. Yeah, I'm gonna crack the window. And she would have to tell me to let the window up because I'm smelling like, yeah, we're getting gassed. I'm excited. Like, and so the fragrance from Sniff, Dead Dinosaur, has a gasoline accord. Now I don't have to smell gas when I'm getting it. I can sit in the car and let the gas pump. But I have a fragrance that has that gasoline accord and that gives the vibe, but actually takes it in a more luxurious fragrance direction and not straight ethanol. So, any other weird smells I like? I cook a lot. So I mean, I'll open up spices and just smell them. I like fresh herbs. I like dried herbs, saffron. Some people don't like the smell of saffron. I love the smell of saffron. Chilies. I'm trying to see if there's any other weird things, especially in food, because there's a lot of weird foods out there, and I don't have an issue with most of them. I can smell a lot of them and not really have much of an issue. Kombucha, I think that's another weird thing to like the smell of because it's fermented. I'm pretty cool with that. Same with sauerkraut. Like I'm if I smell sauerkraut on a like a hot dog or a Polish sausage, yeah, that's like that. That's the vibe. I think those are weird things to like the smell of. Um, while I don't like smelling leathery with fragrances, I don't mind the smell of like a leather jacket, leather shoes, think leather car seats. Like I think those are cool. But other than that, I don't think there's a bunch of weird smells. I just there's a lot of smells I like. And if I launched my own fragrance line, what would it be called and what kind of fragrances would I design? So this is my thing because I've thought a lot about this. In fact, I've been thinking about this since before I started doing fragrance reviews and talking about fragrance in a social media setting. And I like the idea of layering fragrances, but I also like the idea of fragrances, again, just being that extension of expression. So a lot of fragrances that I would design would be things that I would wear, and that really kind of boils it all just boils down to that. I've smelled fragrances from fragrance houses that I'm like, these are not all for the same person, and not the same person is going to wear these. And I'm the kind that if I'm going to make it and spend the time creating it, I'm going to make it so that it'd be something I would wear. um, so I would like to like maybe even revolutionize the way people do perfume oils. Most of the time, they're pretty inexpensive oils used to be the carriers to put in like your perfume concentrate. And I think that it can be a little bit more luxurious. It can feel better. So I've already played with the idea of creating a different kind of oil, a carrier oil blend for fragrances that will help longevity, that will help the skin, but also are intentionally designed to layer. uh, I like the idea too of fragrances that change colors. Like I've studied a lot about how to create fragrances that, as they macerate and as time progresses, the color changes. Think Gender Fluidity Silver going from clear to purple. Think Vanilla 28 going from light amber to dark brown. I like the kind of fragrances that, as they mature, you can tell your fragrances reach like peak performance. So I would definitely do that. And more than likely, the name would be something like Phoenix J Perfume, Phoenix J Parfums, Phoenix J Fragrances, something like that, something along those lines, because that's what I'm using for my cosmetic and skincare brand. And I think it just makes sense to have like a big umbrella name. Um, Y'all, that's it. I feel like those first three questions have taken up a solid 30 minutes right there. So tune in next Friday for another Q&A. I'm going to go through more of these questions y'all have for me. This is fun. And if you have more questions, drop them down in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed before. We'll be spraying some more fragrances throughout the week. I got some more things, some more new ones. As y'all told y'all, this whole section here, I have new things I'm going to be showing y'all. So a couple more new fragrances that have come out since I went through my whole collection. And I will see y'all in the next one. Phoenix J out.